Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the other session of book club. And this book club session will be focusing more on Indian heritage from two perspectives, from the wisdom, knowledge, and from our architectural monuments. And we have two eminent guests, and Milind will speak about it, and Chacha will speak about them. Before that, we have a birthday celebrations. Mary's from home. And we have, fortunately, Alti, Sanjay Altikar also is with us, who is going to celebrate 70th birthday this month. So happy birthday to both of you.
Happy birthday. Big birthday for Sanjay.
Sanjay, yes. Yesterday, I think he turned 70.
And happy birthday, Maurice.
Thank you.
For later in the month.
Okay, I think Mary's, you want to speak a few words? And then we can have a RT talk.
Yeah, no, first of all, lovely to have everybody here and to celebrate the birthday, and especially to be here on the 70th birthday of Altika and Doodh. Yeah, it's been great to be part of the book club.
Wonderful. Sanjay, you want to say a few words?
Well, it's great to see you guys, and of course, I met Yanks at Jogi's son's wedding, and then Gok and I had come to Anjali and Ishan Raina's house. I don't know if they remember or not, but we had visited you all at Colaba. I remember Anu Bhatia was there, and maybe Chacha was there, I'm not sure. And then, of course, Chacha regularly. So it's great to see you guys, and thank you very much for the birthday wishes.
You're welcome.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. And happy birthday to Maurice, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we'll start the session. And the curtain raiser.
Let's talk about step wells. I want you to listen to my buddy Bass Forge here. Again, he's so close. It's so awesome. So close, but just it's not the exact frequency that he's going with. It's the wavelengths are more important.
Words cannot describe what I'm about to show you. This is a step well. It's in India. Some of them go even 13 stories into the ground. They're like inverted pyramids. If you're like me, I was like, cool, pretty well, whatever. But these are traditional ancient wells. Greece, ancient China, that's ancient Egypt. What makes somebody want to build this when they could easily do something like that? It's India. You know it's going to be wild. There's 3,000 of these. And the secret, as always, is in sound. So this is a Chladni plate. When you put sand on a metal plate and draw a bowstring across it, it makes geometry. This should look pretty familiar. That's because this is 3296 hertz. That step well is modeled off of this frequency. Obviously, it's a square that's going to line up, but line up the corners to the node on that frequency. Then you have 4 nodes that correspond to the 4 stairs going down at the top level of the step well. You can follow this all the way down. Now, if you've read the Vedas, this is going to be no shock, but Hindu architecture, especially the pillars, are encoded with sound. That pillar in particular shows in octave ratios if you count the notches. Back to the step well.
Look at this other paper I've got here. Using acoustic waves that are resonant to whatever structure that they are in, you can get them to continuously build up and cause cavitation. Through the process of causing hydrodynamic and acoustic cavitation, you will cause sterilization and disinfection of the water. Building these step wells to specific geometries that are resonant to specific wavelengths will cause disinfection of the water. And that's not even counting for any sort of resonant mixing that functionally separates solids just by the acoustics. It's beautiful. Like, it's so cool. It's all you gotta do is build a well that's a certain shape and it disinfects the water.
Thank you, Srinivas. That was lovely. So let me formally welcome everyone, especially our esteemed IIMCN guest speakers, Prakash Chitre from the 5th batch and Vijay Kumar from the 27th batch. So it's a broad spectrum. If I'm not mistaken, Kolkata Metro has already connected Emerald Bower all the way to Joka. So today, Sandeep is connecting the old and new IIMC campuses by bringing Prakash Chitre and Vijay Kumar together to speak on Indian heritage. Prakash will be talking about intellectual wisdom based on his scholarly book, and Vijay Kumar will be talking about architectural monuments, especially the preview that you saw Srinivas share with all of us just now. So with that, let me hand over the session to Sandeep, who will introduce our guests and then have them speak to us. Go ahead, Sandeep.
Thank you, Milind. So I will give you a little background about how this session evolved. Yanks, are you going to bring up the slides? Thank you. So what triggered this topic? A few months ago, a new alumni group was formed by Ganesh Kudwa of the 11th batch to relive the nostalgia of our alma mater for the first 25 batches, which is from the 1st to the 25th. This brought together on one platform those who were at Emerald Bowers and those who were at Joka, culminating in a Joka Emerald Global Group. Over the next few days, when old batchmates started breaking ice and bonhomie was let loose, members started to share their travels, experiences, health issues, and new interests. Few of them who had ended up in academia started mentioning the books they had written and the research undertaken. During one of these bragging posts, it emerged that even those who were initially in the corporate world had dipped their toes into book writing, especially fiction. The list of such authors is long. However, the literary works on India's intellectual heritage caught my eye, and on sharing with Milind, the ensuing session got created. I hope you will find today's program an interesting and stimulating dive into what we can say we owe our ancestors. Now, given below is what we know about our two authors. Prakash is IIMC's 5th batch alumnus. Prakash grew up traveling all over India and finally graduated from Ahmedabad's St. Xavier's College. Prakash worked in several companies, primarily in Bombay, before becoming a full-time marketing consultant. A few years ago, he started a journey of curiosity into India's ancient knowledge systems that culminated in 2024 with a compendium titled Our Intellectual Heritage. Using archaeological evidence and the works of Indic civilization scholars in several fields of philosophy, linguistics, medicine, surgery, astronomy, metallurgy, civil engineering, mathematics, metrology, etc., he has collated chapter-wise findings in his book. Although reading the book is heavy lifting, including its 2 kg weight, the style of writing is really enlightening. Now we are going to look forward to a stimulating session with Prakash. Vijay Kumar is an alumnus of IMC's 27th batch, as also of NIT Rourkela. Post IMC, Vijay had an illustrious career with Citicorp Information Technologies and Citibank in India and the US. Later, he joined State Bank of India as head of analytics. As founder and director of Bharat Virasat, which has a very interesting website, a not-for-profit body set up in 2024 by individuals passionate about India's history, art, and architecture, the project aims to document, protect, and promote India's magnificent heritage by documenting these architectural marvels, including digital twins, detailed photographs, and expert commentaries on these monuments to best showcase the region's rich history and heritage. The project will utilize technologies like photography, lidar scans, photogrammetry, and other evolving technologies to create the digital twins. India is a vast country with several examples of architecture created at different times in the historical past. The Bharat Virasat project aims to document, protect, promote India's magnificent heritage by documenting these architectural marvels, including digital twins. I think this is a repeat. Has also developed educational programs to collaborate with institutions and integrate heritage conservation into academic curricula. Given the vast scope of Bharat's Virasat, illustrated on the website, Vijay has chosen to concentrate his presentation today only on stepwells called Vav, Bauli, Kund, Talab, Pushkarni. These stepwells were important social ritual spaces besides water storage. Vijay will come speak to us after Prakash's session. Thank you.
Can I begin?
Yeah, Prakash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Prakash.
Thank you very much, 16ers, for taking up my book for discussion in your book club. I feel honored. And thank you for Sandeep for taking the initiative and Milind for going ahead with it. And but before I proceed to my book, I must compliment Vijay. I was reading about his work. I was really, really impressed, Vijay. It's a fantastic piece of work you're doing, preserving our heritage as is reflected in the ancient temples and monuments is a fabulous job. I really must compliment you. Now, let me begin. Let me see if I can manage it. I would like to make a PPT presentation, so that makes it easy for me to speak. Share. Yeah. How does it go? Okay. Yeah. Now, the very what I'm going to talk about is about the existence of a very large body of evidence for the ancient Indian knowledge. All of us have known that our ancients had a lot of knowledge, but largely that was, at least there was no awareness that there is a lot of evidence. So my focus is on that. Sorry. The objectives of my secondary research, by the way, my research has entirely, which lasted for more than 4 years, has entirely been secondary research. It's not primary research. What I've done is I've researched the primary research done by eminent scholars, more than 232 of them, in fact, from 15 different countries and representing about a large number of 45 different fields of scholarship. Coming to the objective now, I can't see this. Can we make this? Can we reduce this because I'm not able to see my own text? Okay. Now, to add to the awareness of the ancient Indian knowledge over a very large number of subjects, their width, depth, accuracy, and antiquity of the same. Now, that's one part of the objective. The other part is also to add to the awareness, the awareness that there exists a large body of evidence for the same. By the way, friends, can you see the PPT?
Yeah,
Yes, we can
Okay.
see it very well.
So I can proceed.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I had classified the large body of evidence in 12 groups of evidence and have presented them in different chapters, spread over different chapters of my book. Now, I'm going to discuss only the following 4 groups here. But later during Q&A, you're most welcome to ask me questions about the other 8. In fact, in my second book, I have added on 2, and there are going to be 14 or 15 groups of evidence. That is first is the archaeological evidence, and there's tremendous lot of archaeological evidence from all parts of India. But of course, primarily from the Harappan, what used to be known as Harappan civilization, but it's more appropriate to call it the Saraswati Sindhu civilization. I can answer that question why later if you ask me. And also in the south, in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and various parts, Maharashtra. Now, the second is their knowledge of astronomy as reflected in the innumerable accurate calculations, etc. in ancient Indian texts. You see, Indians have been looking at the sky and studying it for many, many, many thousand years. And evidence of that, I will come to that in this thing later. Their mathematical inventions, they are very, very distinct mathematical inventions that Indians made, and their discoveries. Am I speaking too fast?
No, you are okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you. And their metallurgical inventions and exports. India exported a lot of the metals, alloys they made. Let's begin with the archaeological evidence. One is their awareness of the abstract concepts in the Mesolithic period also. Now, as you know, Mesolithic period ended around 10,000 years back. And that's when the Neolithic period began, which ended around 4,500 years back. And later on was the historic or prehistoric part of that. Now, a lot of petroglyphs have been found in many states. In Madhya Pradesh, that is one in Betul district, I think. No, anyway, then there is Karnataka in Siti Done, the Badami group of temples, then Edekal, Kerala, and so on. The most prominent, perhaps, of them are the petroglyphs in Maharashtra, the Konkan region of Maharashtra, around Ratnagiri. It's a long strip of 170 kilometers long and 25 kilometers wide. There are more than 1,000 petroglyphs have been discovered there. One prominent petroglyph shows very, very clear designs. There are squares, triangles, rectangles, ovals, circles, ovals within ovals. And as the scientists say, they are very symmetrical designs. And these have been dated to roughly 12,000, continuous period, by the way, from 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years back. That shows their awareness of abstract concepts. And it's not that this is just shown over here. There are other pieces of evidence from other branches of science where you know that they knew their geometry, they knew their algebra, they knew their arithmetic, and so on. Metrology. Metrology, this is seen primarily in the Harappan civilization. You see that Saraswati Sindhu civilization was a huge region, as you know, Balochistan, Sindh, Western Punjab, which is part of Pakistan now, Jammu, our Punjab, Eastern UP, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Gujarat.
Mhm.
The huge region, there were several commonalities. One was the bricks, the sizes of the bricks, the dimensions. The height, the ratio of the height, width, and the length was 1:2:4
Mhm.
in such a vast region. There were a few which were 1:2:3, and very, very few were 1:2:2. But majority of them were in 1:2:4. Then the ratios of structures. Now, the ratios of structures, the breadth and the length or width were not fractions. They were integers, like say 4:9 or 5:11 or so on. In fact, in Dhulavira in Gujarat, the ratios were in squares and cubes, like 4:9 or 4:16, something like that. So that shows their mathematical minds, that shows their mathematical knowledge. And that was more than 6,000 years back, mind you. Weights and measures. In Lothal, they found an ivory scale. And in Kalibangan, Rajasthan, Lothal is in Gujarat, as you know, Kalibangan is in Rajasthan. And there they found two scales. In Kalibangan, it was a terracotta scale. They had measures marked on them, very, very uniform markings. The smallest of them was 1.75 in one case and 1.77 millimeters in another case. So they say an average of 1.76 millimeters. They had graded weights. It's amazing that the smallest weight they had weighed only 0.89 grams. The next one was 1.78, and it progressed in an arithmetic progression 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. It was a perfect arithmetic progression of the weights. Thereafter, there were higher weights, which were decimal multiples of these initial weights. The highest one was 11 point something kilos. Now, one thing I would like to mention here, that these weights, 0.89 grams and 1.78 grams, they had to be able to distinguish between these two, which means that they must have had a very sensitive weighing system. Now, whatever it was, I'm not aware of, but whatever weighing system they had, it must have been very sensitive. Otherwise, there was no point in having such weights. Many of these weights you can see in the National Museum in Delhi. Small scale geometry, there were many tiles and pottery where they had beautiful designs. And as space fillers, they had arcs, perfect segments of perfect circles. It shows their knowledge of, and these are very, very small. It shows their knowledge of micro designs and micro small scale geometry, town planning, layouts, and well-planned grids of roads and structures. Most of their roads were in a definite grid. In Kalibangan and Mohenjo-daro, they found the roads were in perfect north-south and east-west orientation. They were perpendicular to each other. The road sides were parallel to each other. It's not, again, not haphazard roads. The buildings were properly placed. And it showed a perfect, it shows that there was a basic plan for each one of those towns and not just one or two. Civil engineering, circular wells. By the way, scholars believe that circular wells was a Harappan invention. Several thousand years later, the wonderful civil engineers, Romans, even they didn't have circular wells. They used to have squares and rectangles. Now, Harappans use circular wells all over. In Mohenjo-daro, which is, there's plenty of water because it's on the banks of the river Sindhu, in the basin of river Sindhu. And water would seep up and dislodge the wells, the bricks. Now, in order to prevent them, they thought of a very simple but wonderful design, the trapezoid shape. Because of the trapezoid shape, the bricks did not slip in. And well-planned networks of drainage systems, pure water and wastewater at home and town levels, where there was the water scarcity regions like Dholavira. They had a network of reservoirs which were all interconnected, so they maintained, and there was also water harvesting. An excellent example is Pumpuhar in Tamil Nadu, off the coast of present-day Pumpuhar. It's underwater now. They have a large harbor, which is 20 kilometers long, and there is a network of canals for the navigation of boats that come in or go out. And you'll be surprised that the geological remote sensing scientists who worked on that project some about 4 or 5 years back, they estimate that this harbor is 13 to 15,000 years old. Now, there is also a question about why there was such a harbor and with whom they traded and what they traded, etc. So I can answer that question. Please ask me later. I'm sorry. Water management, I mentioned that just now. Sanitation, bathrooms in individual houses with outlets for... In Kalibangan, or was it in Harappa? They found toilets, proper toilets. There were sumps as the water flowed out of the house, any individual house. It didn't join the town drainage system directly. There was a sump. So in the sump, any heavy object that you may say a piece of jewelry that was lost, it would sink in there and they could retrieve it. I have presented the archaeological evidence more in detail in 8 parts of my YouTube channel. You can watch it. I'll be happy if you do later. Knowledge of astronomy as reflected in the various calculations. First, I would like to talk about the width, depth, accuracy, and antiquity of Indian knowledge of astronomy. Because many scholars, mostly Western scholars, like to claim that astronomy came to India from Greece around 2nd or 3rd century CE. Firstly, astronomy did not come to India from Greece. India had its own astronomy, which is far, far older than Greek astronomy. Greek astronomy is said to be about 2,600 years old, whereas Indian astronomy goes way before that. And there was width in terms of the number of subjects, the books, number of books that were published, written in India. Depth, also the depth of knowledge, and they were accurate. Nakshatra, all of us don't know about nakshatra. Now, nakshatra have been mentioned in all of our ancient texts. They have been mentioned in Rigveda, they have been mentioned in Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all texts, including in Surya Siddhanta, which is a complex ancient Indian text on astronomy. I'll come to that later. Values of the latitudes of the nakshatra. There were latitudes also. It's not that they vertically divided the celestial globe into 27 segments. And that was also very interesting because at the equator, it came to each section came to 13.333 degrees of latitude. But there were latitudes of all nakshatra on the celestial globe. And the section was 13.33, not latitude, the section there. The number 108, all of us know about number 108. It is so common in our ancient Indian traditions. But there is another interesting fact about it. The ancient Indians had calculated that the distance from the sun to the earth is exactly 108 times the diameter of the sun. And by a strange coincidence, the same applies to the moon. The distance from the moon to the earth is exactly 108 times the diameter of the moon. Now, this was worked out by the ancient Indians long ago. I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly how long ago it was done. Modern science tells us that the calculation about the sun is almost perfectly correct. Its actual distance is about 107 point something, which is very close to 108. In the case of the moon, it has gone a little off. It is actual distance about 110 times the diameter of the moon, but that's very close to 108. The Nasadiya Sukta, the mind-boggling Nasadiya Sukta, which is there, the 129th Sukta of the 10th Mandal. The 10th Mandal is the last one. It's called the Creation Hymn. What is there before creation? There was everything, but there was nothing. One has to read it to really appreciate it. What kind of depth of thinking there was. As I said, it's also called the Creation Hymn, and I think the name was given by Carl Sagan, who studied it, and he's discussed it in the 10th chapter of his Cosmos. Of the sun has been discussed by an astrophysicist, Dr. Anil Narayanan of IIT Madras and ISRO Ahmedabad. He has calculated that according to the equation of the sun, it's there in the Surya Siddhant. The update must have been made in about 5,500 BCE, that is 7,500 years ago. And he's made it very clear that it is not haphazard, it's not this thing. They had all their instruments, their calculations, their sine tables, cosine tables, and they could have worked out perfectly. Almost the precision. See, there are two things, excuse me. The precession of the Earth. Okay, I'm told that it's already 18 minutes. The ancient Indians knew about both the precession of the Earth as well as Earth's axis as well as its obliquity. The obliquity has been mentioned as 24 degrees in the Surya Siddhanta, which is again had work out when it was written. That particular update was written. And the precession of the Earth's axis has been correctly worked out, correct to the extent of 98.8% by Bhaskaracharya Dvitiya II in the 12th century. Mathematical inventions, the number system, place value system, method of calculation, the decimal system. It is so simple that elementary school children use it and nobody thinks about it. But it was an Indian invention, and it was something. The 18th, 19th century French scholar, Paul-Simon Laplace, he is considered as the French Newton. He has written about it in his memoirs that this is something amazing. This was, and it was an Indian invention. And when it was introduced in Europe in the early 13th century, it revolutionized their accounting and trading systems, so the calculation, the mathematical work and scientific work. Bodleian theorem. I was glad to see that you had a chart of Bodleian theorem and the triples. Bodleian lived 300 years before Pythagoras. And the triples, as you know, are three sides of a triangle, of a right angle triangle, which are integers. Like the first one is 3, 4, 5. And he computed the first 7 triples. He also computed the value of approximate value of square root 2, because square root 2, as you know, is a non-square number, and a square root cannot have any finite number. It leads to infinite series. But he calculated correctly up to 5 decimal places, and he lived in the 8th century BCE. Nature's golden sequence, which has come to be known as the Fibonacci sequence, 12th, 13th century. Pingala noticed it in the 6th century BCE. Virahanka codified it in the 6th century CE, and Gopal Hemchandra also worked on it. Bakshali square root and non-square numbers. See, there are two striking things about Bakshali manuscripts. Firstly, the number 0 is mentioned here or used here as a number in its own right and not as a placeholder. And it gives a method for calculating the square root of a non-square number. Now, Indian scholars have found that this method is about 38% faster and more efficient than Newton's method. And I think that this Newton's method is called the divide and average. And this is from the 2nd century BCE to 2nd century CE. The great infinite series of Madhava of Sangamgram, 14th century CE. And the infinite series is supposed to have led to the discovery of calculus or invention of calculus by Newton. It used to be called as Newton series or Leibniz series, but now people are beginning to realize that actually it was Madhava who first worked out the infinite series of pi and sine functions and cosine functions. Katyapayadi system is an ingenious system of expressing very codifying very large or astronomical numbers into a simple verse which has a proper meaning, like Vishnu Stotra, which is actually in praise of Vishnu. Every word, every alphabet can be decoded, and you'll find that it has a solution of pi up to a very large number of places. There are verses that express the latitudes and longitudes of moon, the sun, and amazing systems. Madhava used it very well for codifying the sine and cosine functions of angles between 0 and 90 degrees. He divided them into sections of 3.75 degrees and codified the value of the sine functions in Katyapayadi system. I'm sorry, I'm taking very long. India's metallurgical inventions, woods which is a microalloy really, woods, uku, is also referred to as a superplastic material because it has a dual property. It is extremely hard as well as extremely ductile. In fact, during the Crusades, the Syrians that made their dreaded Damascus swords and Damascus daggers using Indian woods. India, by the way, exported huge quantities of these. Extraction of pure zinc, as you know, has a melting point and sublimation point, which are both very close to each other, about 1000 degrees Celsius. So, it cannot be extracted by using the normal distillation process. India invented the downward distillation process, and which was unique. And in a period of 500 years, India exported something like 1,500 tons of pure zinc, and you can imagine how much money India made. See, India became rich not only on spices and silk. There was metallurgical inventions which made India rich. Corrosion resistance technology, the famous example is the Delhi Iron Pillar, but besides the Delhi Iron Pillar, there is also the one at Kodachadri in Karnataka, then one in Dhar and one in Bhopal. Other striking examples are the massive iron beams of the Konark Temple, the other Konark Temple, which collapsed about 500 or 600 years back. The massive beams, and they showed very little sign of corrosion, and lying open in the saline atmosphere for 500 or 600 years. Had they not been corrosion resistant, they would have become totally iron dust by now. Maybe delta phase heightened bronze also, that is the specular mirror, this front reflection mirror, which is ideal for using in telescopes. Now, India, well, there is a tremendous width of ancient Indian knowledge. My book touches only the following 19 areas. The other areas I did not even touch. You'll find evidence of such knowledge in all over my book. I would like to come back, in case you wish, I can come back to this particular slide and you can ask me examples of any of these areas. This is a point I would like to emphasize. Indian knowledge was not confined to one point of time or subject or geography. Subject spread, you saw the previous slide, which is only a limited list. Scholars, in my book, I have discussed 72 scholars from different fields of knowledge like astronomy, mathematics, physics, chemistry, philosophy, grammar, and so on. And there are many more. The 72 is probably a small fraction of the scholars we had. Time spread, as you saw, it beginning with the Harappan period or pre-Harappan period also. You can say that Pumpuhar is the civil engineering, the port, a harbor that they constructed. And I stopped at the 15th century CE. Geographic spread, it is all over India. The evidence is there all over India, not just in north or in south, but also in east and west and so on. And it is also very deep and accurate. This is the list of fields of scholarship of the scholars whom I have quoted, there were more than 213 of them, 30 of them from 15 different countries. And you can ask me, maybe I'll remember examples of any of them when you can ask me. And if I don't remember, I'll just say so, but I can mention names there. Now, my humble submission, we Indians, irrespective of our backgrounds, such as ethnic, etc., have every right to be very proud of a very ancient civilization and knowledge, provided our pride is based on valid and verifiable facts and not flights of fancy or wishful thinking. And equally important, that we do not show any disrespect to any other civilization. This was our civilization. This is what we had. This is what we knew. And this is what there is evidence for, is what is important to us. So thank you very much for your patience. And thank you very much for permitting me to exceed 20 minutes. Okay.
No, not at all. Prakash, this was very enlightening, and it tells me how in-depth your scholarly book must be, which I am now attracted enough to come to Mumbai and look at, if not read, parts of. So this
Thank
was
you.
really fascinating, and we'll come back with questions during the open session towards the end. But this is the right juncture when we can turn to Vijay Kumar after your excellent presentation. Thank you. So let's move to Vijay Kumar, and please take over, Vijay.
Thank you.
You can stop sharing, Prakash.
Sorry?
You can stop the share. Screen
Oh.
share.
Oh, yes. I don't know how that has happened, and I don't know how to come back to it. Okay.
Next slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I've done it.
Yeah.
Vijay, you want to present or you want me to show the slides?
I'll present, that's okay. So I hope everybody can see my screen now.
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
So, Prakash, fascinating, fantastic. You made my job easier by taking up some of the time because I'm not going to have so much to speak about. You made my job harder by making it such a hard act to follow. So Sandeep spoke a little bit about what I'm trying to do here. One aspect of my work that he has left out, and probably because it's still a little bit in the future, is that eventually we intend to set up a park somewhere in the vicinity of Hyderabad. We are just about finalizing the location. It will be for Srinivas. I believe you are in Hyderabad, so you will know this. It's on exit 10 of ORR. It's Taramati Pet. So we're setting up a park which will feature scale model replicas of monuments from all over the country. So you can come to one place and it's like visiting a lot of the country, or much of the country. I saw the initial video that was created and it ended with the question, how many of these places have you seen or visited? And I think I can honestly say at least 80% of those have been there. It's been a fantastic journey so far. And yes, the objective is to make sure that, much like Prakash has said, the objective is to make sure that Indians are aware of what our heritage includes. Because I think a lot of pictures, if I just show the pictures of places I've visited, most of my friends who are well educated, well traveled, recognize only about half of that. And people across the country would recognize even less than that. And there's so much to be in awe of and to be proud of. So that's part of my motivation. The other part of the motivation is that much of our heritage is vanishing slowly at different rates. Sometimes it's just natural deterioration, sometimes it's neglect, sometimes it's natural disasters, and sometimes it's manual or human mischief. So all of these are contributing. So that's the motivation for why I want to do what I want to do. And would love to have more detailed discussions and would love to have all of you come and visit it when we open our doors. Hopefully by end of 26, we'll be able to throw open the doors of our project. So with that background, let me talk a little bit about the step wells and tanks in India. I just took a small segment because this happened to be a topic that was being discussed among our friends, among our group, when Sandeep said, "Can you present something?" So I came up with the step wells and tanks of India. So what are step wells and tanks? Well, it's fairly straightforward. These are man-made reservoirs for water. They go by different names: Bauli, Vav, Kund, etc., etc. And they're basically places where water is stored, and it allows people across the community to come and collect water from there. Sometimes they are reservoirs with inlet and outlet channels, and sometimes they are just rainwater harvesting. Right? So there are both kinds of
Has
water
the
bodies.
noise gone off? Has the sound gone off?
No, we can hear him.
I can
Go ahead.
hear you too. So
Yeah, go ahead, Vijay.
okay. So while primarily the purpose was water storage, they actually served a secondary purpose as a social, religious, and a ritual space as well. So as you go along, I hope you can see the pictures I've included in the deck. So the first one I included was Suraj Kund from Faridabad, which is one of the largest reservoirs we have in the country. It goes back to about 6th or 7th century, maybe slightly later. It's 130 meters in diameter. So it's a massive, massive reservoir that's there. Small reservoirs, tank systems, and Prakash also referred to that in Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira. I think the initial video also taught me something that I did not know about the geometry and the science behind the design of these tanks. So it evolved from small reservoirs to larger ornate step wells that you see across the country. And in southern India, the temple tank Tanda synergy became very, very significant. So the Tanda means a village. Okay. So very often you would see a temple, and right next to the temple you will see a tank. And this is not just in southern India, you see this across the country. Most temples have a temple tank next to it. The Tanda then becomes critical because the village then organizes itself around the temple and the tank. By ascribing the tank to the temple, they gave it a religious identity and made sure that the water becomes sacrosanct. So if you go and visit many of these step wells today, it's a real tragedy. They are dirty, full of algae, silt, etc. But giving them a religious identity made sure that people took ownership of that, made sure that they are clean, and made sure that it's available as potable water even for everybody in the tank, in the village. So after that, it became a survival kit for forts. So you'll see a lot of forts with their own step wells. So when the fort is under siege, you have farms within the fort, and you have step wells within the fort, and you have what wells, reservoirs of water in the fort. Something I learned as part of this preparing for this session was that the first piped water supply in India was in Pune from the Khadakwasla Dam. Until then, there was no provision for piped water supply. And subsequently, as more and more cities and we have got piped water going to houses, the concept and the necessity for step wells has kind of dwindled. And they have fallen into neglect, disuse, siltation, lots of garbage which is being dumped. So that's the current situation there. And here in the picture that you see is the Ganga Aarti from the Dashashwamedh Ghat in Varanasi. It's such a beautiful experience for anybody who has not been there. I would urge you to go there. It's not just a spiritual experience. It's a mystical, musical experience that you would love to be part of. So there are multiple types of wells that were created. I think Prakash referred to the fact that we had circular wells in the Indus Valley civilization. So we have vertical shaft wells, which just dig a hole straight down into the earth. You have stepped galleries like the Chand Bauri, the trapezoidal design that was referred to earlier. And then you have multi-story pavilions like the Rani Ki Vav, which is the picture that you see on the screen here. So the Rani Ki Vav is actually a very interesting combination. On the western end, you have the vertical shaft circular well. On the eastern end, you've got the steps which go down to the level of the water. So it's a combined vertical and step well there. And a lot of these, you'll see stone steps, retaining walls, carved ornamentation, again ascribing them a religious identity. If you see Rani Ki Vav, you see themes from Dashavatara, from Shiva Purana, Vishnu Purana, all of them. So this is literally, it's called inverted temple, because the way a shikhara of a temple rises from a broad base to a successively diminishing spire, the Rani Ki Vav is the exact opposite. It starts from a broad surface and successively diminishing levels go down to the water surface. The materials that were used, a lot of it is stone. And again, Prakash had preceded me by saying that why the design of the trapezoid became so critical, to make sure that the shifting of the stones and the shifting of the well walls doesn't occur. There was seepage control to make sure that the water doesn't get polluted, and you don't lose the water either from the well. Making them deep also made sure that the evaporation is controlled to some extent. And so a lot of these step wells, you'll also find chambers next to the step well, which are cool chambers. So in summers, you could go there and spend some time there. This picture that you're seeing is Chand Bauri from Abhaneri in Rajasthan. Chand Bauri is, I saw a very interesting feature there in Chand Bauri, where you had a pulley system there. So if I remember correctly, the eastern side of the step well is actually a 7-story palace, while the north, west, and south are the steps that you can see in the picture. And in that palace, there is actually a bath that is drawn, and you can fill it with the pulley. So you can draw water from the step well into the bath. There's a large stone slab there which you can heat, and that stone slab then heats the water, so you can have actually hot water for your bath. Rajasthan has deep and geometric, so the Chand Bauri is an example. Gujarat, very ornate, Rani Ki Vav. Delhi and UP, there you have urban step wells there, so Agrisar Ki Baoli in Delhi right now. The Deccan and the south, you got a lot of step wells which they're not necessarily step wells, they're more tanks, where the water rises right up to the surface and you don't have to go very deep, again, because water is available there. So if you see the step wells in Rajasthan, for reasons of necessity, they are very deep. And in the Deccan, a lot of these wells were man-made tanks. So you made sure that you created a large, like our Joka campus. They're natural lakes, right? So all they did was create, they're not natural lakes, sorry. In Joka, it's all man-made lakes. So the same with the Deccan and southern. And then eastern, on the coastal side, you find tanks, and these tanks did not just serve the purpose of drinking water. What you see here in this picture is the tank at Shershah's tomb in Sasaran. And you see those people, they are actually fishing. So the tanks were created so that they are populated with fish. And just like the Mughal gardens of yore were not created as ornamental gardens with flower trees. They were created as gardens with fruit trees, right? So the fruit would actually be harvested and serve the purpose of generating revenue for the maintenance of the garden and maintenance of whatever structure that garden was part of. So similarly, these tanks were also created with the purpose of making sure that they're enabling revenue generation from them as well. So the critical reason why these tanks and step wells came into existence is, of course, water scarcity, water sustainability, and availability of water through dry seasons. Other purpose was defense. So if you are inside a fort, then making sure that there is enough water to survive a siege. And what I think is a very critical purpose is that they were social spaces. Okay. I find it fascinating that our calendar has got a festive season practically in a festival, a significant festival in practically every month. Different parts of the country celebrate in different times. I know I spent some time in the US and the West, and 25% of retail business happens in the month between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which makes for a very lumpy economy. What we have done is we have created a festival in practically every month. So you got a Rath Yatra here, you got a Krishna Ashtami, you got a Ram Navami, you got a Dashera, okay, you got a Rath Saptami, Rath Yatra there, you got a Bihu, you got a Pongal. Across the year, your celebrations are spread out, which makes for a far more streamlined economic activity. And these tanks and temples served a very critical purpose in that the festival was organized around those. So even today, you have the Suraj Kund Mela, which happens every year in February, March. And these melas happened at these tanks throughout the year. And from an economic perspective, of course, pisciculture was one part of the role that these tanks and ponds play. So this well that you are seeing here is a step well in the Jama Masjid at Champaner in Gujarat. I just wanted to make it clear that these wells were not necessarily associated with a particular religious activity, right? So while a lot of temples had tanks, you can also find tanks in masjids also. Practically every mosque has got a wuzu, which is a tank in itself, but that's a place to wash your hands and feet before you go to pray. This one is not just a wuzu, it's actually a tank with a more social purpose as well. Rainwater harvesting and recharge, so making sure that we do not, lots of these places were places where water was scarce, so you made sure that you were harvesting rainwater. So what are being promoted and touted as green practices today have been green practices for us for centuries. Low tech, low carbon solutions, again, sustainable practices, and biodiversity and microclimate support, so making sure that there's water available for that. The challenges faced today are that a lot of these step wells, siltation and pollution has claimed many of these step wells. Urbanization and encroachment. So people, as I said, with piped water becoming more and more ubiquitous, the necessity and value of these step wells has diminished over the last 100 odd years. But I think we are now reaching a point of inflection again where we are saying, wait a minute, the piped water doesn't cut it. Not everybody gets it. We need alternative and we need supplemental ways of providing potable water to everybody. So I think over the next 50, 60 years, you'll see a resurgence of water storage methodologies with improved technologies, hopefully, while still maintaining the sustainable footprint. Yeah, so the institutions around these are weak. Earlier, because the temple was there and the temple had a guaranteed revenue associated with it, that revenue became also part of the village and the community's revenue, and it went into the maintenance of the tanks and the wells around it. So we need to figure out what are the new ways of ensuring that these wells become community property and are actually funded for and taken care of. Legal issues, of course, because a lot of these have had encroachment, and now we'll get into disputes about who actually it belongs to and who has right to it and who doesn't have right to it. Climate change impact, as climate change becomes more and more pervasive and its impact touches so many aspects of our life, we need to figure out what roles these tanks will play in our world. The picture that you see here is the rock cut temple from Masroor in Himachal Pradesh, which has got a very large tank right next to it. The rock cut temple of Masroor is one of the reasons why I decided to launch the Bharat Virasat project. This was a beautiful temple which has got as its concept, there's one central spire that you can see in the picture, and it had 9 spires surrounding it in a radial form. In 1905, there was an earthquake. This is a rock cut temple, so all cut out from a single rock. In 1905, there was an earthquake which destroyed most of the temple. Fortunately for us, photography had already been invented. So we have photographs that the ASI and Alexander Cunningham's team had taken before 1905. So we know how glorious and beautiful the temple once was. So I want to make sure that we use the latest technologies available to us today to document and preserve the form in which these heritage structures are there. So generations from now, people can go back and say, I know what it looked like. So there are lots of efforts that are actually happening. Rani Ki Vav has now got a UNESCO conservation. It's one of the UNESCO heritage sites. So it comes with all the privileges and the responsibilities of being such a site. Agrasen Ki Baoli is under ASI. Turji Ka Jhalra is a community-led revival. And there are lots of policy efforts which are going on. Lots of small community groups which are coming up and saying that we need to reclaim our step wells. We need to make sure that they become healthy again. So why does it become relevant for India today? We need to have a decentralized water infrastructure. Piped water is not going to cut it for everybody. It's not always feasible, not always economically viable. Also create green public spaces. So wherever there is water, you know that there will be some greenery there. Education, tourism, and revenue generation opportunities are also associated with these step wells. And again, these wells and these tanks will help us adapt to climate changes and make us resilient to some of those changes that are happening. The picture below is the one from the Vandiyur Mariamman temple in Madurai. This is a very large tank which has been created. I think it's about 70 meters by 70 meters square tank. It's a man-made tank. And they've created a small island in the middle of it with the temple there. And there's a boat service which ferries pilgrims from the shore to the temple. Design inventions. Today, you can have hybrid designs with modern filtration that you can create. You can create permeable catchments to make sure that water that runs, so your rainwater harvesting becomes more practical. Making sure that there is native planting and ecological buffers to prevent the loss of water and to increase the groundwater water table levels there. Some of these wells also you can make them more accessible by creating proper staircases, lighting, signage, etc. So that's an opportunity for us. The picture that you are seeing here is the Ghantaghar Talab from Lucknow. This is very close to the Bada Imambara and between the Bada Imambara and Chota Imambara. So policy and governance, map and register. So I just saw a message that was sent to me by Mr. Kapoor a few days ago, which said that the government is now throwing open the doors for conservation policy, practice, and execution to private entities as well. Until now, the ASI has owned the conservation agenda, but now they are saying probably ASI cannot do all of it, and which is true. And they are saying private contributions are welcome. So mapping and registering all of these, I already know a few organizations which are practically going door to door and trying to document all these steps here. Making sure that there's multi-stakeholder conservation, so all the people come together. There are some pilot projects already in place which link the water and heritage. My contribution as Bharat Virasat will be a small part of that. Community stewardship, making sure that the communities own that space and they actually benefit from it. Nobody's going to own it just for the sake of owning it. Give them a stake in that, make sure that they own that and they benefit from it. Jal Mahal in Jaipur is actually a water treatment plant. It looks like it's a palace, but it's actually a water treatment plant. If you go near that, it stinks. So how do you measure and monitor? Make sure that you have got groundwater, you have got indications for how much groundwater, water table, etc. Lots of different ways in which you can measure the health of a particular step well in the water ecosystem around that. So I'll come to Aga Khan Trust for Culture. They have done some fantastic work in and around Hyderabad. So they have taken up the Qutub Shahi tombs area for, they adopted it and they restored much of it, like they have done with the Humayun's tomb in Delhi. What they did was they identified 6 Baolis in the Qutub Shahi Heritage Park and the Badi Hamam Bagh, Western East and Eastern. And they cleaned it up, restored it, got the community involved, all of that. And now if you see the step well today and what it was like 20 years ago, it's an absolute transformation that they managed to create. And this is what one organization did with one set of step wells in India. So how do you do it? How do you expand that and how do you take it to the rest of the country? Well, you document them, you do a condition assessment, you do a structural assessment also for what it looks like. Then first of all, you repair the structures where required. Then you create the hydrological work for the area around the wells and the tanks. How do you make sure that the water is being fed back if it's rainwater fed? Otherwise, if it's reservoir, how do you pipe the water in? Remove the debris, do desilting, and do this on an ongoing basis and not just a one-off. So what are the challenges? Well, a lot of these wells have faced neglect for centuries, if not decades. So you make sure that you're shoring up those walls, the structural walls again. Remove and a lot of these wells now are just garbage dumps. You need to clear all the garbage that's there. Uh, Remove the silting there. A lot of them face legal and ownership disputes. So these are some of the challenges that are being faced when communities and organizations are stepping forward to take care of these wells. And the other part is, of course, the people who know this skill of how to create and maintain this. We are losing those people as well. So how do you make sure that that knowledge is not lost and it's passed on from generation to generation? Well, good news is that many of them are happening today. They have become very vibrant social community spaces. In the case of AKTC, they have actually created 19.3 million liters capacity has been created across all these wells in Qutub Shahi tombs. We're getting recognition. The UNESCO Pacific Asia Pacific Award was given to the AKTC work here. Future, what can we do? Well, heritage plus water management plus climate adaptation. This is something that can help us if we take care of our wells and our tanks properly. Strengthens public spaces, city branding, living infrastructure model for the city, for other cities. So, especially for AKTC, they have said that this becomes our genesis for mapping and inventory of bowls in Telangana. So, I think somebody asked me, but are there step wells in southern India also? I said, well, Gachibowli in Hyderabad has become such a famous name, and that is because it's a Bauli. So a lot of wells are there across the country. It's not just in one part of the country. So these are some of the things that we can do to make sure that we reclaim this heritage, we reclaim this community asset, and make it accessible to everybody. So I'll stop with that. I hope I have not overshot my time. I hope I was able to convey some of the interesting concepts around our temple tanks and stepwells. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijay. I think between you and Prakash, you have really opened our eyes to the wealth that we have inherited by way of intellectual wisdom as well as these architectural monuments, of which you just provided, both of you, some powerful glimpses of what this heritage is, if only we show more awareness for the wealth that we have inherited. And if we learn, like Vijay said, how to conserve this wealth for future generations. So, thank you very much for a very enlightening and rewarding session. And now let's open it for questions in the remaining time that we have. And let me start with one question for both of you. I think Vijay provided part of the answer, but also Prakash. Uh, I'm wondering, all of this is from the past, and sometimes we say the past is something we cannot control anymore. But what do we take away from it for the future while we are here on the planet and for future generations? So both of you could respond to that.
Prakash, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Now, your question, Milan, is an excellent question. Anybody would like to know how it is useful? Let me try to divide it into two parts, how it has been useful in the past and how it can continue to be useful in the future. The past, one thing is that the number system, the place value system, it made an immense difference to the lives of people, scientists, mathematicians, accountants, everybody. That was a great contribution India made. Another one I would like to mention is zinc. The industrial level downward distillation of zinc invented by India and which India exported to a very, very large extent. In fact, in the middle of the 18th century, William Champion, pardon me for using the word, stole the technology and he established a foundry in Bristol. And the availability of zinc, pure zinc in such large quantities contributed to the Industrial Revolution, and that's what many people say. So these are the only two examples in the past, and and of course you can't forget the yoga. Yoga has become has been accepted all. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Yoga is an excellent example of how ancient Indian knowledge has helped the world. As for the future, I can think of one prominent example, that is Ayurveda. Remember Sushrut, in his Sushrut Samhita, he explained not just 125 surgical instruments that he designed and 300 kinds of described 300 kinds of surgeries that he carried out, but he also discussed as many the etiology of as many as 1100 diseases. Now, Sushrut was an Indian, and the 1100 diseases that he wrote about, and he wrote about the diagnosis and treatment and everything. The causes of these were Indian diseases. They're very much relevant to us. Maybe a lot of them still exist. Many don't. Like chickenpox doesn't exist anymore. And they were all based on plants, which means that, and these were Indian plants. So the whole thing, the etiology as well as the solution is based on, is very, very geospecific in India. Now, if we start using Ayurvedic medicines, maybe safely, slowly, it can decrease our dependence on allopathy. Nothing against allopathy. It's a great science and it has helped humanity a great deal. But we can reduce our dependence on that. So this is how I see it. And there are many other things like, say, for example, the corrosion resistance technology can be used in places. And I'm not an engineer, so I can't imagine in how many places it can be used. The same applies to Ukku. The highly, it's a the superplastic material, highly ductile as well as extremely hard. Maybe there'll be some industrial application. I don't know. I cannot visualize. As I said, not being an engineer, I cannot visualize that. But there are many other areas where ancient Indian knowledge can be very, very relevant in today's context. I hope it answers the question, Milind.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for such a detailed and rewarding response. Thank you, Prakash. And so let's listen to Vijay.
I'll address the other part of the question that you had implied, if not explicitly asked. What can we do about it? I think the least that each of us can do is create awareness. And it's the easiest thing for us to do. Everyone you talk to, just talk to them about what you know, and every conversation will lead to an increase in knowledge. Shared knowledge is always going to increase knowledge. So large part of my efforts for the rest of whatever years I'm given will be towards that, creating that awareness and trying to document and protect it as much as I can. But creating that awareness is going to be so critical. The more people who join this journey, the more the beneficial it's going to become for everybody.
Thank you, Vijay. I think you are doing enormous amount of work to conserve a very important resource that all of us would find more and more precious as time goes by. So thank you for that. Srinivas, you've raised your hand, so please go ahead.
Yeah, first, thank you very much for, I think, excellent opening the eyes, like someone said, like Anjali said, you opened the eyes to all of us, and there's a lot to take it forward. But my question specific to both of you, the first part is to Prakash. You made a good point about verifiable knowledge and respect to other cultures. And somehow that I feel that that's where that India, our knowledge is not getting the saliency what it deserves, because either we hype it up or we make it mumbo jumbo, we mix it up, or we don't present our narrative the way it is understood by the world. So that sort of disconnects us from the rest of the world and in taking the knowledge forward. So that is, I think I would like you to respond. And Vijay, I think, has made a very interesting point about how we can, again, get a resurgency of the stepwells as an example. I'm sure that there are many such examples he must have done with his knowledge in terms of architectural heritage. Here, there are a lot of political vested interests and community clashes and all that, which I think with his experience, how he sees that we get away from those shackles and then see actually do a proper restoration. Thank you. Prakash, you would like to?
Okay, fine. I about the community interests and everything. I think the awareness should be that this heritage belongs to all of us. As I said at one point, it is irrespective of any of backgrounds of any kind, ethnic, religious, or any other backgrounds. It belongs to us, to all of us Indians. And if that awareness is generated, if people are successful in creating the awareness that, look, it belongs to us, not to any one particular ethnic or any other kind of group, but it belongs to us. And if that awareness can be achieved, I think it will help.
Vijay, go ahead.
Yeah, Srinivas, I look at both parts of the question, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge is not geography specific. Okay. The very fact that we are all talking in English on this call should tell us that. English is not a native tongue for any of us. And yet we are all speaking in English, right? And English is knowledge. That's language is also knowledge. A lot of the sciences that we speak of, they were not created in isolation in this part of the world or that part of the world. There's enough evidence to show that knowledge was shared across civilizations, and that sharing further spurred increase of knowledge, right? Humanity prospered because of that. So absolutely with Prakash on that. This is a shared resource. I don't think any of us need to claim ownership or deny ownership of this. Knowledge is knowledge for everybody. So I went to Hampi and there's a Ganesh temple there. And I looked at that Ganesh temple and I said, I have seen this before. Hampi is, by the way, mid-16th century, early to mid-16th century. Most of the structures in Hampi are around that period. You go back to I think it's about 2,200 years ago, the temple of Diana and Ephesus in Greece. That looks startlingly like the temple of Ganesha in Hampi in 1500. So it's not like we have created this by ourselves. We have, as always, we keep learning, and what we have learned from the people who have preceded us enriches us, and hopefully we enrich the lives of the generations to come. The other part of the question that Srinivas asked is that, did you face challenges? Well, honestly, I'm still starting in my journey. I do expect to face a lot of challenges. Right now, the biggest challenge I face is government red tape. I offered to do a project for free, and it took me about a year to get permissions to do that. So very happy to report that just a week ago, I finally got the green signal from the government. So I'm going to start my first conservation project, documentation project. Post Diwali is what we are hoping to start. But if you see problems, there are going to be problems everywhere. So my son plays cricket, and I once was having a chat with him, and I said, like, how do you plan your innings? He said, I look at the spaces where I can hit the ball and I can score. If I look at the fielders, I know I'm going to give them a catch. So that's the way I look at it. I see there's so much to be done. Yes, there will be problems. Sometimes you need the resolve to overcome those problems. Sometimes you just need to bypass the problems and do things that you can.
Yeah. Thank you, Prakash and Vijay. I think the lesson for all of us, particularly for me, is the persistence and tenacity with which you have pursued these projects to bring back the past for us in such a vivid way. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Ishan, you have a question for our guest speakers?
I have a question and a comment, actually. The question is, people visit some of these places in any case. Like, I have gone to Surajkund 20 times, but I have not seen the stepwell. I think that's a shame. That doesn't happen in any tourism country or any historic country like the Mayans and Mexico and various other places. I mean, a French friend of mine told me before you go to Angkor Wat, idiot, So I think that the sensitivity is partly awareness, partly has to be institutionalized. So maybe you can just take 4 or 5 of these places and integrate it into the tourism school visits, the education curriculum, because you can't start with everything. But I think that places where people are going, school children go to Surajkund. I shall go to Surajkund from college because Rosie Pelican was available for 4 rupees. And, from Delhi, we used to go by motorcycle. It was cheaper. So what I'm saying is that there are lots of places already being visited, but visited for reasons other than stepwells, and perhaps you should find a matrix of where school visits are happening and where education is happening. This NEP, I think, is not focused enough on this. And now there's a huge. I've been fighting with tourism people for like 6-7 years, and since 2016, 9 years. But now there is awareness because they need to make up the foreign exchange, with the thing. So your timing may be right, but you have to take it in small bits. 4, 5 places, and identify what curriculum, what school visits, what goes to tourism, and actually make a plan. There is never a better time than now, because we're going to lose $50 billion, and we suck at tourism. Okay, we're just showing off about Milan. We don't make money. It's an interstate transfer. And we need at least $20-30 billion extra from tourism the next years. And these are eco-tourism, historical tourism. This is what is growing at 18% a year compared to other global tourism, which is growing at 8%. So there is a sweet spot somewhere. I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't know where the sweet spots are. But, when you say Surajkund, when you say South Indian temples, there are forts that, there is fort tourism, temple tourism, this tourism. Somewhere, Abhay is saying, I have a question, request, please. So I'm going to stop there, but I can talk for
Yeah. Sure. Abhay, go
Ishan, I
ahead.
would love to connect with you on that later.
Yeah. Let's listen to Abhay's question and come back to Ishan.
Sure. No, Ishan, I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, if you want to just go ahead, please finish your piece and then I can come in. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Abhay, go ahead.
All right. Okay, great. Firstly, thank you so much, Prakash and Vijay. Vijay, I'm in Hyderabad, so if you're in Hyderabad, let me know. At least I can, if not be of great help to you, but at least I can provide you company and we could meet. I'd love to meet you. It'll be to my privilege.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I think, one of these guys will share my number with you. The question I have, both speakers were brilliant. I've learned a lot, and I'm so happy that I attended this session. My only 2 or 3 things, I have a request that we've left out music. We've left out our ancient sciences, how they treated our mind and spirituality. So if I combine mind, spirituality, relationship into one box without sort of complicating it too much. So that's one area that I would love you, Prakash and Vijay, to also include in your future research. That will be really wonderful. And the other is music. So music is an area where I feel that the Indians, again, I don't want to be sounding jingoistic, but I think our music, our theories and all that are far ahead and much before the Western classical music took shape. So it would be really interesting to look into these 2 areas as well. You did cover medicine, so I had that noted down. But Prakash, just now you did mention Ayurveda, so that's fantastic. But by the way, in Ayurveda itself, you talked about plants. There is another science called Rasayan Shastra. And in Rasayan Shastra, it's only, you talked about zinc. But in Rasayan Shastra, they have some fantastic treatment of mercury and lead. which are poisonous materials, but their chemical treatment and in the old style, whatever they had, the resources, they used to do that. And they actually make compounds based on these two metals, which are very toxic. But they are used to cure even pancreatitis today. So I've actually been to an Ayurvedic manufacturing setup in Rudrapur and saw that. But I was very upset because they weren't following good safety practices, and all the liquids and all that were being thrown onto the ground and polluting the ground. And can you imagine polluting the ground with mercury and lead? It's a disaster. But nevertheless, there is so much more there also. So just a suggestion to you both. Thank you.
Sorry, may I take it on from there?
Please, sir.
Music. Now,
Yes, please.
I recently read reports that Sushruta as well as Charak used music. They invited musicians to treat patients who were under trauma, under a coma, and people who had just come out of the trauma to rewire their minds. This I heard recently, but I don't have any confirmed, confirmation of that from reliable sources. But this is what I read, and that's a good thing. Music, yes, is a huge area. Music, there is musical instruments, there is so much, and there are places like Takshashila. I used to teach Takshashila, Nalanda, even Kantalur in Kerala. They used to teach 18 different arts. In fact, all three places taught as many as 64 subjects. That gives an idea of what is the width of knowledge they had to impart. That's that. There's something I wanted to comment on what you said towards the end, Abhay.
Yes, sir.
There was something you said, and I forget now. There was something else that I wanted to talk about.
The Rasayan Shastra.
Yes. Rasayan Shastra, India does have very, very long history of Rasayan Shastra, which is expressed in so many ways. And they have also given methods, chemical processes, how to use various plants and how to treat them, how to get certain compounds, chemical compounds and everything. In fact, I'm covering a part of that in my second book. There is one very knowledgeable scholar named B.N. Jagtap. He's an atomic physicist, but he has done an overview of the knowledge of chemistry in India. But
Wow.
their knowledge was chemistry was amazing.
Just amazing. And especially dealing with things like mercury and, the whole molecular structure, I believe, changes. So a very toxic mercury or lead actually undergoes, because of this treatment, some molecular changes so that it doesn't become as toxic. It probably still retains a little toxicity, but I know this guy, this Ayurvedic guy, who has kept records very scientifically and shows proof that he can treat pancreatitis. And there is no cure in allopathy for pancreatitis.
That answers your question, Milind, about how it can be, ancient Indian knowledge can be useful today and in the future. That is one area.
Not only that, if I may just take one, Milind, can I take one more minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. See, so there is a deep connection between music, sound, vibration, and our chakras also. And believe you me, I follow something known as Sahaj Yoga, and they talk about chakras and all that. And we were in Ganpati Pule, and there was a Maharashtrian musician who was there. And there is a connection between all our chakras, the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, blah, 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 whatever. And this musician actually connected the ragas and his musical pieces to each chakra. At that time, my wife Smita was expecting, and she was sitting there. And while he was playing the raga and the music, singing for the Nabhi chakra, my wife felt. No, I'm sorry. She was not expecting. We had the baby. Anushri was a baby sitting on her lap, and and at that time she felt when he was singing the Nabhi chakra, she felt that Anushri had wetted, and she felt so cool in the Nabhi area. and she checked, but it was not that. It was just that the music had that, and she swears by it. And she was not a die-hard Sahaj Yogi by that time, and she was just getting into the Sahaj Yoga. But she felt the coolness in an Nabhi Chakra. And similarly, for the heart also, they say if you have certain mantras and all that, they can actually affect your heart, slow you down, slow your heartbeat, etc. So I think that's another area where I think our ancient sciences can help humanity. Thank you so much. I'm going to shut up now.
Thank you, Abhay. No, I think this discussion between you, Ishan, Prakash, and Vijay also opens up new avenues for all of us in terms of keeping up with awareness and keeping up with what we do in the book club, reading as much as possible. So, thank you to both our guest speakers, and thank you to Sandeep for thinking up this inspiring session where he's in one bold stroke brought
I
people
think
as wide
Anjali wants
apart
to say
as
something.
fifth to the 27th batch. Yeah, go ahead. Who wants to speak?
I just wanted to say that it was an absolutely fantastic session. Prakash, I've been seeing your posts on the JD group, and and I have your book, but your session today has made it so much, more
I'm
vibrant.
flattered, Anjali.
No,
I'm flattered.
I look forward to meeting you and getting it signed in
Yes.
person. Vijay, it was fascinating to hear about the stepwells. I'm a fan of stepwells. And to hear you bring it out and the connection between the sacredness of the water and the temples was also great. Building on Ishan's point about awareness, I think if, the school curriculum, we have now the national education policy and we have a bunch of educators. So with Vinita's help, who's an educator, maybe actually a proactive approach to apprising the national education policy of these rich resources would be fantastic. The digital infrastructure that the government has created is actually quite awesome. And it's totally free and available for anybody to upload their materials. So one is making it available on those platforms, what the information that you both have got so beautifully curated. And second is helping educators understand that they can use these resources to build pride in their children. And working with organizations like Pratham, etc., might work. Vinita knows much more about this than I do. But, using Ishan's point that we need to take it to the next level. He's an advertising man like Yanks. So I think the communication is as important a part as collating the information, which you both have done.
Just to add to that, Anjali, I think we have Chacha with us, who is like a universal, I don't know, whatever the name you want to give. The way he's connecting to villages, towns, cities, countries is amazing. So I think he and Vinita, I think, are the real good combo who can help these two gentlemen, I think, who are doing a lot of work and taking this sort of an idea, awareness forward. I think the rest of us can support in whatever way they like.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, for all of us, we are running out of time. But as Anjali said, many of us would love to spend time with both of you whenever we are in India and wherever possible. And I hope both of you, and on some other occasion, make it convenient to come back and join us at the book club as your work progresses. So,
Will be a pleasure and a privilege.
thank you. Thank you, Prakash and Vijay. It was really our pleasure to listen to you today. And thank you, Sandeep, for inviting
Thank you.
both.
My pleasure. Very glad we got together.
Yes.
Now look forward to the recording being uploaded so those who did not attend can go over it.
But I totally agree with Anjali because our new education policy has a very significant part about Indian culture, but then they need to talk about heritage from the point of view that you are talking about in terms of evidence, etc. They're just talking in the air. So I agree, totally.